Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Bhadram Karnebi Shrunuyama Deva Bhadram Pashe Makshabhirya Jatra Sthirairangai Stuštuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vridhashravaha Swasti na Usha Vishwavedaha Swasti Nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brahaspatir Dhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, in our text, we've been talking about this relationless relationship between ultimate reality, Brahman, here in this text called Purusha, spirit, and the phenomenal world, the Vishwa, the Jagat, the Virat, many names. So we have Nirguna Brahman, Brahman without qualities, which is always experienced as the subject. And we have Saguna Brahman, Brahman with qualities, meaning the phenomenal world, which is objectively known. Or as the philosophies say, Nirguna Brahman is the noumenon, and the phenomenal world is the phenomena, things seen. And the Upanishad said, this world is Brahman, and there is an aparavidya, a knowledge of this world, which we get in the Vedas, on how to be a relatively happy, successful person in the world. Exoteric understanding if we do ritual. The deeper meaning is karma yoga, basically. Live an ethical life. And the scripture says there's relative happiness. It's always transient. So I'm starting the Essence of Yoga Vasishta with a student this past week. And in the beginning, Lord Ram leaves the palace. He goes out in the world on various pilgrimages. And he comes back. And then for some reason, we don't know, he gets very depressed and he won't take care of his duties and stuff like that. And Vishwamitra, the sage, has been doing penance in the forest, comes and says, I'm being attacked by demons. He says to the king, send your son Ram out to attack these demons for me. And Ram is just, and Vasishta, the court sage, says this is not because of some calamity. This is not because he's clinically depressed. This is because he's seeing the world as it is. The whole rest of that first chapter. You're born, you die. Something wrong with every part of it. Very depressing. Now, let me tell you a true story. I've just started working again with someone whom I have known and worked with on and off for 24 years, almost 25 years. When I first met him, he was in his 30s. He was a pizza driver, about 80 pounds overweight, in a relationship he really didn't like. And he felt stuck. So, Thomas. So we worked from moving the mind from tamas into rajas. What are your dreams? What are your desires? Follow your bliss. He loses the 80 pounds. He has a new partner. They're married. They bought a condo in Daly City. He went back to school. His dream was to be a teacher at San Francisco City College. So he went on, gets the master's degree, goes on, gets a doctorate in education, teaching at San Francisco State, USF. He's a rock and roll musician. He gets a band. He's cut a bunch of CDs, traveled to Europe. And what he's discovered is that he's still discontent. So listen carefully. Part of the way the Lord has set up Maya, we can want a goal, and as long as we don't have it, we can believe that's what's going to make me happy. But if we look to our direct experience, we get it, a momentary happiness. It's just different. But it doesn't deal with the restlessness, the discontent. Now, in this country, we call it a midlife crisis. You get 40 years old, maybe 50 years old, and if you're a guy, you divorce your wife and get a red sports car. That's going to fix it. So what the Upanishad has been talking about is the question, Paramavidya, is there a knowledge, is there an experience that will bring us something that's enduring? And this is Brahmavidya. Knowledge of the self, not intellectual knowledge only, but direct experience. All right, Mark, where are we in our text now?
Did you want to finish? Did you want to finish mantra 11?
Sure. Do you have a copy of the text, Puneet?
I'm going to borrow David's, if that's okay.
What page are we on?
50, I think. No, sorry. 50.
I think we're in the second kanda.
Yeah, 52.
All right, and we're the 11th mantra in the second kanda. And
yeah, you the next part of it is go through the orb path of the sun.
Okay,
So should I start from the beginning and just read the whole?
sure.
But they who perform penance, tapas with faith, shraddha in the forest, solitude, having control over their senses, are learned and are living the life of a mendicant, go through the orb path of the sun, their good and bad deeds consumed, where that immortal and undecaying Purusha is.
So this is mystic symbolism. One of the oldest names of God in the Vedas is Surya, the sun. So let's break it down, and here in this mantra is implied the path itself. So the first idea.
Do you want me to go to the part where we stopped? Or
No, let's do the whole thing.
okay. But they who perform penance,
Okay.
tapas with faith.
So this means to become adhikari, to become a fit student. And last week we talked about what tapas really means. It means being able to move the mind from its non-conducive flows of thought into more conducive flows of thought. This generates resistance, heat. We talked about, I think, going to the gym last week. The beginning, oh, I don't want to go. And after a while, when you develop the new habit, you feel badly if you don't go. So right now we have extroverted, non-conducive modes of acting and thinking. So to become adhikari, what are the new modes of thinking and behavior we want to take on? One of the best paradigms for that is the yamas and niyamas from Raja Yoga. And look those up. Another one is the qualifications of a fit student, which we get in Viveka Chudamani. Discrimination between the real and the unreal. Vairagya, that desire to give up attachment and identification. Shamadhi guna, qualities of shama, etc. Learning how to tune the mind. Not let it extrovert out there. Finally, mumukshutva, the burning desire for liberation. After we do those classic four, Shankara says, others say that bhakti alone is supreme. Devotion to the infinite. So this is the tapas that we're suggested to do. Next idea.
With faith, shraddha.
Yes, shraddha. So we get a message from the phenomenal world, especially in America. One with the most cash and prizes wins. Bigger house, bigger boat, bigger swimming pool, more money, fancier title, more bling, nicer clothes, a new widget. You can fidget with your widget. Getting what you want will make you happy, and we'll tell you what's going to make you happy. What was it called? Apple Vision Pro. You can get goggles that will give you a virtual reality, so you don't have to look at this reality. You look at another reality. And we're taught this is going to make us happy. We don't really slow down enough to look at what's real. It's the wanting itself, craving, that's my suffering. Next idea.
In the forest, solitude.
Yes. So, no, you don't have to really go to a forest, but you do need to set aside a sacred place in your own home. Some of us may have enough space in our houses to have a meditation room. Others of us, no. You get a meditation seat. I sit in this chair, cross-legged, and meditate. That's my spot. Let go of the externals. Many people come to the spiritual life with all sorts of ulterior motives. They don't even realize it. The biggest is they want community. No. Each person travels this path alone, even if there's lots of people around. Do it by ourselves. We have to be comfortable in our solitude. Next idea.
Having control over their senses.
Yes. So it is sense perception itself which then creates the vrittis, the ripples, the vimarsha in the mind. Let me see if I can give an example. So if you don't listen to the news, you don't know what's going on, then it doesn't upset you. So simple. Everything that's disturbed me has come to my mind through sense perception. So here the scripture is not saying avoid the world or somehow enfeeble the senses. I'm going to poke up my eyes and plug up my ears. No. The classic example is you want to have a mind like a wicker basket. You're pouring water into it. You just want to let sense perceptions pass through. Now here's the secret. Ego says that if I'm in a disturbing or uncomfortable situation, I should get away from it or bang on it so it changes. Yoga says, notice that you're annoyed, uncomfortable, disquieted, and maybe lean into that situation a little bit. Heard me say this, just don't do something, stand there. Be with the discomfort without reacting to your reaction. See, it's just a mind state based on sensory experience. Simply the force of the past maturing. And if we do this, the volume level on our reactivity starts to lower. We no longer spend our time avoiding discomfort. Next idea.
Are learned and are living the life of a mendicant.
Shrotriyam, learned. So this doesn't mean you need to be a scholar. But as we enter into the spiritual path, there's all sorts of traditions out there. How do I know which one to follow? So our first pramana, authority, means of knowledge, is the information we find in the Upanishads, the Brahma Vidya. And it sets out not only principles, but of course the study. So we don't want to get sidetracked into stuff. This is my opinion. You come across a teacher who said, all those old things are outdated. I have a new form of yoga. I've made up my own yoga now. This is much more effective. I would treat that with a bit of mistrust. Lots and lots of people who have led people down all sorts of strange practices. What was that? The Heaven's Gate people, remember that? There was supposed to be a spaceship behind a comet, and everybody had to commit suicide in order to get to the spaceship. And the leader of the group castrated himself so that he didn't have to deal with sexual attraction. That's lunacy. Crazy. The Waco, Texas people, Jim Jones, Diana. How many people died there? Do you remember, David? You're probably old enough to remember. Hundreds. They don't all end in suicide, but there are all sorts of people who get caught up in all sorts of craziness. So you want to be learned. So you have a valid means of knowledge. Now, Vedanta is not the only one. My dear friend Susan, who passed away in April, she was a disciple of this teacher, Dede, who was the sheikh on the post in Konya in the Mevlevi order. So he was a bona fide sheikh, master of that tradition. There are many of them. So being learned, and what was the next idea? Being a mendicant?
Yeah, living the life of a mendicant.
So this doesn't mean wear a loincloth or orange clothing and live in the forest. It can mean that. But it means inside, I take the vow of non-ownership. Everything is mine to use. Nothing is mine to own. This is the only effective sentence. Now, many yogis find that their life is much simpler when they simplify their lives. Remember, if you have stuff, you got to pay for the stuff. And you pay for it with money. You know what the definition of money is? Stored labor. Unless you're a capitalist. The money itself starts to make you money. But you gotta work for the money to buy the stuff that I think is going to make me happy. Nothing wrong with that. Many of us find quality of life is better when there's space, when I'm not frantic and frenzied. Workplace. Is that the end of that, of the mantra?
No, that's not. Go through the orb path of the sun.
Okay, so what this means is follow the path of Brahmavidya. It means here wrestling with the question, who am I? What's my essential nature? There's an exoteric meaning that has to do with doing ritual and following the path of sun, where you die the first 6 months of the year, etc. That's not the deeper meaning of this. It's not about accruing merit and going to Punya Loka or Brahmaloka, Swarga. Here it means find out who I is. And if we do that, let's see what happens. The rest of the mantra.
Their good and bad deeds consumed.
Yes. So it's not about being a bad person and becoming virtuous. It's not about being a sick person and becoming well. It's not about having low self-esteem and having high self-esteem. It's not about being a miserable creature and becoming a powerful person. Get out. The yogi discovers that no personal sense of self is real. I'm not the body. I'm not the subtle body, the thoughts and the feelings. I'm not this chidabhasa, this reflection of consciousness, the karta, the doer. Aham brahmasmi. So, if you look at the coffee mug, and the coffee mug is very clean, are you a coffee mug? No. If the coffee mug has coffee on the sides where I've dribbled and spilled, are you a coffee mug? No. Only peace comes getting out. True story. So I was working with a young man this week, and he's in 12-step program. And he wanted to share at a meeting. And then he started to judge his share before he ever even shared. Oh, I don't want to say something stupid. I don't want to say something that's artificial. I want to say something that's profound, but I can't do that. And then everybody's going to look at me, and I don't want them to judge me. They're going to think I'm stupid. He was so uncomfortable after 45 minutes of this, he had to get up and leave the meeting. Now, the psychotherapist will reframe it. Oh, no, you're not a terrible person with horrible social anxiety. You are okay. You have something valuable to contribute. Cut yourself some slack. This is your trauma from childhood. You're okay. What they're doing is trying to reframe, no, you're not a bruised or contracted ego. You're punya. You're really a good person. You can go through this, knock yourself out. Scripture says, my own personal experience, it never works. It's at best temporary. Because it's rooted in a lie. It's rooted in this idea that there's this thing called me, Jim, the individual, that's solid and real and has permanent qualities. And I can't ever seem to figure out what they are. Yoga says that's actually mental phenomena. It's an event. But there is something that's real, that's behind that. I'm the witness in consciousness. I'm Ch.1, the space of pure awareness. And I'm no longer concerned with ideas of punya or ideas of God. Next idea.
Where that immortal and undecaying Purusha is.
So it's not like I, Jim, am going to go to Purusha Loka. Oh, hi, Purusha. Glad to meet you. No. It means at one point I think I'm a person, Jim, with breath in his nostrils. And in an auspicious moment, when the mind is very quiet, and all the perturbations, the vikalpas, are gone, with the attentive faculty turned within, focused on the question, who am I? I see that I am that space of pure awareness. I didn't become it. I didn't need it. I discover, oh, that's what I've always been. I just did. Any thoughts on this before we go on?
So in that example, that person should have just sat at the meeting and seen that they were feeling uncomfortable and watch it pass.
I'm not saying should. I just think it would have been a more effective practice, which we talked about.
Yeah.
To stand back, we call it Sakshi Bhava, is the technical term. Taking on the viewpoint or the attitude of the witness. So you see the social anxiety rise. Oh, look at that. And you don't do anything about it. You know, even if, oh, I want to share something profound. Oh, look at that. That's a stupid idea. Let that go. More effective. Lord, is there anything you want me to say? You feel the difference? We don't get involved or engaged in these ideas of self. The word that's usually translated as ego in the scriptures is ahamkara. Aham is simply the first person pronoun, means I. Kara comes from the root kri, to make or to do. We get words like karma, action, karana, cause, kriya. But it's the kind of thinking that gives rise to a personal sense of I. When you think you're Saundarya, that's ahamkara. And if you're caught up in pride, oh, I'm a powerful person, and oh, I want humility, I'm just a worm. That's not real humility. There's an old slogan. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. It's about self-abandonment, small s. It's about self-forgetting, small s. Not self-improve. This is not for beginners. This is not for worldly people. For God's sake, go to your therapist. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Get coaching. What do they call them? Life coaches now. How to manifest your drives, your desires. Knock yourself out. That's that karma kanda section of the Vedas, which is only temporary. All right. Is there more to this mantra?
That was the end of this.
Okay. Next one.
Parikshya lokana karma chintan brahmano nirvedam ayan nastya krita kritena tadvijnartham sa gurumeva vigachet samit pani shrotriyam brahmanishtam. Let a brahmana, an aspirant, after he has examined the worlds gained by karma, acquire freedom from all desires, reflecting that nothing is eternal, can be gained by karma. Let him, in order to obtain the knowledge of the eternal, take sacrificial fuel, samit, in his hands and approach that preceptor alone, who is well versed in the Vedas and is established in Brahman.
Oh, yes. So Shankara almost completely quotes this in his Adhikari section and followed by qualifications of a fit teacher. So again, let's parse this and see what it is that we are to do. So the first idea.
Let a brahmana, an aspirant, after he has examined the worlds gained by karma.
So in the more modern understanding of caste, you have the Chaturvarna, the four castes, being a Brahmana, priest class, Kshatriya, the warrior class, Vaishya, the merchants, Shudra, the laborers, Chandalas, those of us like myself who are outcasts, meaning I am outside the Hindu caste system, which, according to modern understanding, is based on Janma. It's Janma. If you go to Gita, Lord Krishna says, I am the author of the fourfold caste, according to guna and karma. He does not say janma. Guna is qualities of mind. Karma is the actions I perform. So the deeper understanding of the Upanishad here, you are not born to be spiritual just because you have the sacred thread and you can trace your lineage to a particular rishi. It's the qualities of your mind and your actions. very funny. This woman, she used to be teaching, and he'd say, so you have the sacred thread or into a rubbing cast. But there you are, not studying scripture, not practicing yoga. You're out there buying and selling in the world. You're nothing but a merchant. But then antithetically, if you're born in the US, or maybe even if you are Indian, you come from a scheduled class. That's what they call them now, right?
Mhm.
Even dollar. But your actions are such that you're devoted to your spiritual practice, and your mind is software. You cultivated some purity. Then, according to Lord Krishna, some scholars say that much of it was the Brits who took the topic of jati. Who can tell me what a jati is, or a jat? Your profession. Oh, our family, we're cowherds. Oh, our family, we're all lawyers. Oh, we've been military people for a long time. So the custom was you would go into the same profession as your family. It happens all over the world. I'm a musician. In my particular field, frequently, not always, those people who become world-class musicians come from musical families. You get that kind of those sanskaras as kids. So there is something to that. But it's not because of your birth. It's not because of your birth. And we also have to look at the word in Sanskrit. What does the word varna mean in Sanskrit? I mean, it does mean caste, but it has another meaning. Here is Sanskrit. What's it mean?
It's like a classification.
Beyond that, color. It's color. So there may be some racial prejudices that may have to do with migrations of peoples with fairer skin who may have conquered or dominated people with darker skin. Even today, we find those prejudices. And it's wrong. Enough on that. So here, when he says, if you're a Brahmana, it means you have the desire to know Brahman. Next idea.
After he has examined the worlds gained by karma.
So, what a person needs to do before they're fit to do this work, you need to have an understanding of the world outside. Nowhere does yoga say you don't get enjoyment from worldly things. Of course we do. But it's always limited. It's always temporary. And what brought me joy yesterday may not do it today. The other thing about knowing this world is we need to have some understanding of our own kleshas. Klesha means affliction. I think most of the Western Buddhists translate it as defilements. What do the Goenka people use?
Yeah.
Defilements. But it's my own character flaws, my own brokenness, my own issues. No happen. But we have to have done swadhyaya from the Raja Yoga tradition, an analysis, an inventory of our character strengths and our weaknesses and our challenges, and to some degree have begun to work on them. So many old people will say, well, this is just the way I am, you're going to have to live with it. Oh, that's so sad. If a person comes to a point in life where they refuse to grow, and we can change. But 90% of our capacity to change is awareness of what we're doing, awareness of what we're thinking and feeling. Any thoughts on this? Next idea.
Acquire freedom from all desires.
So this mature vairagya, that desire to give up attachment to all experiences gained through the senses, the desire to let go of any identification with a personal sense of self, starting from the body up to including the form of Brahma, the creator, meaning I'm a powerful person, is called vairagya. How do we do it? First, we have to thoroughly understand the pleasure principle, I call it. Now, the psychologists have their own pleasure principle, but I coined it 40 years ago. So let's let the prayer stone be a stand-in for whatever it is that I think is going to make me happy. A person, a place, a thing, or a situation. Now, what's amazing is not all of us like the same things. So who here likes coffee? Who here doesn't like coffee? Well, there are people who don't like coffee. My stepsister doesn't like coffee. Who here likes pickled herring? Who here doesn't? And we can go through all sorts of objects. Some people like this, other people don't. They like that. Other people don't like that. But who experiences happiness when I get what I want? By and large. That's everybody. So the question is, where is the locus of happiness? What is it that has happiness as its dharma? Dharma here is the essence of a thing without which it would not be the thing that it is. So, setting that question aside, let's look at the dynamics of pleasure. So first, I determine what it is that I want that's going to make me happy. So let the prayer stone be a stand-in for that. I discern that it is Priya, dear to me. Ooh, I want a widget. Then what do? I get proximate to that object. This is called moda. I can buy it, I can make it, I can earn it, I can date it, etc. And when desire and object of desire become one, when I get what I want, that point of pleasure is called pramoda, the point of pleasure. In my ignorance, I think the pleasure's in the widget. What yoga says is no, pleasure is your self nature. My swabhava is ananda. Shankara has in his great hymn Nirvana Shatakam, Chidananda Rupaham, Shivoham, Shivoham. My nature is bliss consciousness. So this is what we call a mediated form of experiencing the bliss of myself. And in my ignorance, I think it's in the object. This is called the Anandamaya Kosha, the sheath comprised of happiness or bliss. We experience it in one other state called deep sleep. Who here slept well last night? What object caused the pleasure of deep sleep? Nothing. In fact, it was the absence of the projecting mind. Everybody loves a deep sleep. When the mind is folded up in its seed-like or unmanifest form. So yoga says, bliss is my swabhava, my self-nature. What is suffering? Suffering is the craving mind itself. The kama, the spriha, the vancha, the raga, the dvesha. What does it feel like to want something you don't have? It sucks. The more I want it, and the further away it is, the more unhappy I am. Jim, are you telling me that good music, good food, good sex, good literature are all the same? What they do to my mind is the same. But I get confused and distracted by the various sensory experiences. What it does is momentarily stop the Vishepa Shakti, the craving, projecting, the extroversion of my mind. Now, most of us run around all day long with low-level discontent and agitation. We're restless. I have friends, people I know who cannot be alone. They're so terrified of loneliness. Gotta be with somebody. They can't sit still. They've got to be distracted. They've got to be busy. Because being still is so uncomfortable. comfortable. Why? Because their fundamental mind state is, I want, I want, I want. Unexamined, they don't know it. They just can't be still. So here the Upanishad says, the yogi needs first to make friends with their suffering. Watch your mind. Notice when you're unhappy, when you're suffering. And then ask yourself, am I attached? Am I identified? Do I want something? There I am. You can't flip it off by a light, like a light switch, by the way. But at least, as Shankar will say, don't embrace a rotting corpse thinking it's a beautiful bride. Be honest. I'm suffering because I'm stuck wanting. Mudha. And make friends with your own ananda. Watch your mind. Notice what happens to your mind when you satisfy a desire. This is the only way to develop mature vairagya. As long as I still believe that people, places, things, and conditions can give me something real and permanent, I want to be renunciate as much as anything in the world ain't going to happen. I have to see what is the cause of my suffering. What is the real nature of joy, happiness, sukha. It's a kiss of the bliss of Brahma. Right now, it may not be super available to me because of the tyranny of my craving mind. But that I can work on. Any thoughts on this? This is foundational in the Buddhist tradition. The very first teaching of the Buddha, the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, was the Four Noble Truths. Dukkha Satya. Life, the way most of us live, is suffering. Second Noble Truth, Samudaya Satya, the truth of the arising of suffering. It is kama, craving. It is dvesha, aversion. It is moha, delusion. Noble truth number 3, Nirodha Satya, the truth of the removal of the cause of suffering. Freedom from craving is freedom from suffering. Just talked about. Then the question, can I be permanently free from suffering? And the Buddha said, Varga, truth of the path. You would say sadhana. Go for what's real. Next idea.
Reflecting that nothing that is eternal can be gained by karma.
So, actions cannot free us because actions are not in contradiction to the problem. My problem is avidya, ignorance. It's a famous story about a king who gets drunk and falls asleep. He wakes up in the middle of the night, he's still loaded, and his room is dark. So he calls for servants to come with brooms to sweep out the darkness. No word. Because sweeping is not opposed to, does not contradict darkness. Someone has to bring a torch. Light dispels darkness. This does not mean not to do your yoga asana, doesn't mean not to do puja, doesn't mean not to chant the name of the Lord, doesn't mean not to go on tirtha pilgrimages, doesn't mean not to take sacred baths. All these are effective in acquiring purity of mind, but they don't solve the problem, because the problem is avidya, the non-apprehension of my essential nature. Antidote to ignorance is knowledge. Knowledge comes through inquiry. I'm thinking of an arithmetic problem. Do you know what the arithmetic problem is? Why don't you ask me?
What is the arithmetic problem?
2 + 2 is equal to 4. Do you know now?
Yes.
What was the solution to your ignorance?
Ask you.
Yeah, you inquired. Atma-vichara, investigation into the nature of the self, is the answer. Next idea.
Let him, in order to obtain the knowledge of the eternal, take sacrificial fuel, summit in his hands, and approach that preceptor alone who is well versed in the Vedas and is established in Brahma.
So we have this tradition of Guru Dakshina, where we bring a gift to the teacher. That's not the most important part. Actually, the only thing we can really give the teacher is our stinking vasanas. But what should your teacher be like? He needs to be Brahmavid. He needs to be Shrotriya. He needs to be a full knower of the Supreme. And he needs to be able to wield a valid means of knowledge. That's what Shrotriya means. He needs to know enough of the scripture to know how to work with various minds, various things. And there's a pedagogical sequence of practices. He needs to be, or she needs to be, familiar with them. And this was Swamiji's great gift, because he not only was able to transmit the knowledge, but he was a great teacher of teachers. So people ask me, Jim, why are you a Vedanta? And I say, I did not choose Vedanta. I had a relationship with Swami Chinmayananda. He had what I wanted. And if he'd been from another tradition, I'd probably be in that tradition. Now, I love the Vedanta. I think it's beautiful. But the essence of it is my relationship with that wisdom. Next idea.
That was the end of this verse.
Okay, we'll quit here then. So, yeah, we got 5 minutes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.